Let's get a water. Time has come, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Let her get the last word in. I love her. Pretend her like my wife. Good morning, everybody. Today, I welcome you to meeting number 536. It's Tuesday, July 23rd, and we're at the North Queensbury Firehouse, which we really appreciate being here. It's our third month in a row because Lake George and our normal spots are having a banner summer, and our usual haunts are being occupied by perhaps well-paying people. Anyways, approval of meeting minutes and fiscal actions. First I'm going to ask, do we have an agenda?
We do.
Quorum. We have an agenda.
Yes. We have an agenda. You're asking for a quorum.
I think I do that about every other month.
That's all right.
Do we have a quorum? Thank you. Approval of meeting minutes and fiscal actions report. Meeting minutes for June 2024. Any comments, actions, discussion?
So moved.
Motion's made.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any, all approved? Any nays? Hearing none? Carried. Approval of fiscal actions report for June 2024. Motion?
So moved.
Made, second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays? That's carried. Item 3, project action report. We have a resolution. Do you have it there, Joe? You're working on it
I got it right here.
with the speed of electronics?
I got it if you don't need it.
Whereas the commission has received the review project review action report prepared by staff and dated 7/16/2024, and whereas the project review committee recommends acceptance of the project review, directs that the project review action report be incorporated in the minutes of the full commission meeting. So moved.
Motion? There's a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Made, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, it's passed. The next item 4 is a bittersweet item. We have with us, unfortunately as a guest, which I don't like that term, is Mr. Dave Floyd, who is tendered his service to the Park Commission nobly and is here with us this morning. I think you want to talk to us. And when you're done with that, we've got something more for you. We got your cigarette lighter as a going away gift, like in the Marine Corps.
I will talk from this side out.
Okay, you're more than welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you. I was told since I'm on the agenda, I can talk. And I'm going to do that today because I think it's very, very important. Our family has lived on Lake George for 125 years. We've got family now spread out over the whole lake. But we still have the original house, and we have family members living in that. So it's been very, very special to me and to the family. I served on the Fund for Lake George for 9 years as a board member prior to joining the Lake George Park Commission. And I've been on the Lake George Park Commission for 16 years. And they've been wonderful 16 years. In the last few months, this board has been beaten up and abused because of some very, very different situations. But I want to let people, a lot of people have forgotten the good things that we have done. And I'm going to review some of the things we've done in 16 years, which have been positive for this lake, and I've been part of. First of all, when I joined this board, our law enforcement department was headed by a rent-a-cop from DEC. And we had only had that person for 3 to 4 months. We didn't like that. We wanted to have a permanent person. So we went to the governor of DEC and got permission to hire a full-time person as a member of the Lake George Park Commission. And immediately we hired Joe, and it was wonderful. The results have been fantastic. We hired Dave Wick. Dave Wick has been a tremendous asset to this board. I'm sure the Lake George Association has different thoughts about it, and that LGA person who wants to slap his face. But he has been wonderful. He's done an outstanding job. People don't understand that Dave has done what we told him to do. He didn't come up with these ideas. He came up with ideas, but we told him to do these things. So everything Dave did was directed by us, because he works for us. Parasailing. There were several accidents about 9 years ago with parasailing. So we said, we got to get in charge of this thing. So we had a committee, we met, and we came up with rules and regulations for parasailing. When they could do it, how they could do it, having an observer, life jackets, the whole thing. And we established a good relationship and came up with rules and regulations, and they had to register with us. So we got that under control. And since then, I don't think there's been a parasailing accident. Jet skis. About 11 years ago, 70% of all of our accidents were jet skis. And we said, we've got to do something about this. So we met and we came up with rules and regulations for jet skis. Who could operate them, getting a license, wearing life jackets, where they could work and operate in and out. They had to be 500 feet from shorelines at full speed. And we came in with guidelines on jet skis, and I think we've done a very good job in regulating jet skis now. Rental boats. We came in with guidelines for rental boats because they got out of control. And now they have to register with us if they're going to be renting boats. And there are certain things they have to do. The movie they have to show people the rules of the road and who can be driving the boat. Do they have a driver's license? Are they mature? Are they adults? And I think we've kind of done a very good job on getting that under control. Boat inspection. This is one that we are very, very proud of. A bunch of us went to Lake Tahoe. We went to Lake Tahoe and saw what they did. We said, okay, we see what they're doing, what equipment they're using, and we came back and we put together a program here on Lake George. And it has been very, very successful. And the person that we've hired that works for it is almost a full-time job. And I may note that when we first chose sites for inspection, we did not choose $1 Million Beach. That was added about 4 years later. And now $1 Million Beach is our #1 launch site for Lake George. But it's been a very, very successful program, and it's very, very complicated how you say who was been inspected and getting in and out of the water. And a few years ago, the LGA's Public Relations Department said they started it and they ran it. So I think maybe this was kind of a start of our relationships with LGA, because they didn't do that, we did it. Kayaks. Kayaks became a problem. There were some incidents with kayaks. So we couldn't put in laws about kayaks, but we could put in guidelines. We put in guidelines with the kayaks, putting things on their paddles, which were more fluorescent so people could see them. Life jackets, where they should operate, where they shouldn't. Maybe putting flags off the back of the kayaks. We gave guidelines for kayaks so that people would understand it. Stormwater regulations. When you're dealing with Albany, it takes a long time to get things through. And it probably took us 2 years to get stormwater regulations in place. And we did do that, and it was voted on, and it's now a law. So we're very, very proud of that. Paddle boats. Paddle boats became an issue. And we went again, put out guidelines. Wearing life vests, where they should operate, where they should not operate. So it became very, very very important to us for safety reasons with paddleboards. Airplane landing. We got into that, where they should land, what time of day they should land, what they could do and what they should not do to make safety for the lady. So those are things that this board has done. Stream corridor protection. The first time we introduced this, we got clobbered. One of the town supervisors had a group of people came in and it was hostile. So we backed off, but then we came back and did it again. And the second time we did it, we went to all the town supervisors, we had public hearings, we had people, we showed here in our meetings what we were going to do, what we were proposing, and finally getting it through Albany, back and forth, this committee, that committee, that's, cross this T, dot this I, back and forth, back and forth. And finally, after 2.5 years, they came in back to us and said, okay, vote it into law, guys. And the day before we were to vote it into law, we got a phone call from the LGA. They wanted to change one of the clauses. So we asked our attorney, and she said, that'll take you guys another year to do that and make that happen. And I happened to be in the day that call came in, and as secretary-treasurer of this board, I said, you know what? They're a day late and a dollar short. We're going to vote. And the next day we did vote on it. And it is now a law. And since it's become law, we have had not one public comment about what we did wrong. So I think we probably did a good thing. The septic tank program. Bruce Young appointed 5 of us as a committee to work on septics. And we spent probably 2 to 3 days a week working on it. We studied what other communities have done on it, how they pay for it, how the inspections work, what were the rules, regulations, what was the distance of the septics. And then we had an outside committee that hopefully to advise us, and we met with them 2 times a month. We chose people from the county, experts in engineering, and I'm happy to say that 2 people who were on that outside committee are sitting on this board today. So we obviously chose some pretty good people to help us with the septic program. We put it into effect, and it was fantastic. It's worked out very well. We had some glitches at the start, but we've done a good job with that. I'm just going to touch on Priscilla Court. We all know the battles of that one, but I'm going to say one thing on that. When we first introduced Priscilla Court, the LGA's executive board wanted to meet with our executive board, and we did it by Zoom. And we presented our data, and that fell on deaf ears. And the LGA board was there, Jeff Glean, their chairman, and Dr. Kelly was there. And he did most of the talking for the LGA. We figured, well, he's probably talking because he's the scientific arm because of the Jefferson Project. And Dr. Kelly kept saying, we don't know, we're not sure, we don't know, we're not sure, we don't know, we're not sure. And finally he said, we need 1 year to test Priscilla Court, to test it to see how we want to proceed with Priscilla Court. Okay? 1 year. Folks, that was 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago. So the LGA has had 2.5 years to test Priscilla Court, and in those 2.5 years, they have not done it. Not one test that we know of. Maybe they did something to back up all of these claims and put out their campaign of hate with false information. But they had 2.5 years to do that, and they didn't. And in the end on this program, folks, science won. Science won. It won in the courts, and it won. And they had a chance to be part of science and weren't. Shame on them. Shame on them. When I was on one of the great things for me on this board was I was the head of the law enforcement group. That was a wonderful experience for me. I really enjoyed working with Joe and all the officers. And living on the lake, the officers really appreciated having a member of the board living on the lake, seeing the conditions that they were operating in every day. The waves, the wind, the boat traffic. They really liked having me as a member of the board, right on the lake. And I'll miss doing that because those guys were great. My children are very upset that I'm leaving this board. with the passing of Jane, they thought this was great because it kept my mind working, kept me interfacing with people, doing things. And I told them, I'm going to still be involved because Ken and Dave are going to call upon me if they want advice, and if they have a committee, they want something done. And I'm going to be coming to meetings, watching what this board is doing. And I'd like to say an old Indian saying, because it's very important. Be careful what you say about another brave unless you've walked in his moccasins. Well, ladies and gentlemen on this board, I have walked in your moccasins. And I've been there. And in closing, I would like to say, I can walk out of here today with my head up high, knowing that for 16 years I've done wonderful things, helped do wonderful things for this lake and this board. Thank you for hearing me.
As I give you this token of our appreciation, and I was on the commission just before you were, so everything you said, I just relived. Yeah. This morning, at our first meeting, we all talked about a new committee that we're forming, and it has to do, I'm just going to speak generically right now. We'll have more information as we flesh out the details about what the Park Commission can do progressively, positively in the future. Rather than reacting to projects that need to be dealt with, we create projects that we can give birth to and nurture and relate. And that committee is going to be known as the Floyd Committee.
Wonderful.
And you're going to sit on it as an ad hoc member.
Really, thank you. Fantastic.
And with that, I have a photo of, says David Floyd on the bottom, but that's an island. I've been to your home, so I know there's a spot on the wall.
Yeah, there is.
It's going to hang
Oh,
very
yes.
proudly.
Right in my office.
Okay. And you know you're always welcome back here.
Right. And thank you for putting me on that committee.
Appreciate it.
That's wonderful. Pardon?
Can I get you guys together for a second?
Oh, my buddy?
The same two guys with the same height.
Take care. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay. Joe, all over the years. Yeah. Good job. Did I say okay? I know. Take care. Good job.
Okay. We should do that every month for somebody. That's like reliving my life. I came on the Park Commission in 2006, and I remembered him as he reminded us. It was great.
It was great to recap all those
Yeah.
projects.
Item 5 on today's agenda is a presentation by the Lake George Downtown Revitalization Initiative with Dan Baruch, and I'll have Dave Wick give us an introduction to that project. Or that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today we have Dan Baruch and we have Sean Doty. Dan Baruch is the Director of Planning for the Town of Lake George. Sean Doty is a Principal with Swazo Doty now, is it?
You got it.
Very well. These folks have been working very hard with the Town and Village of Lake George. They collectively received a grant of $10 million to do important new work to draw people to the village, to advance it into the future. I think Kathy is a co-chair of that organization. I'm pleased to be a member of that committee. So as they're advancing projects, right now they're open for different things. Dan and Sean are going to talk about it. But I thought it was important for them to come in front of this board to talk about what's happening there and if there's any opportunity in the next 6 months to a year for the commission to play some small role in that, whether it was funding or support or otherwise, but I figured let's get a solid base of knowledge from these folks before we kind of have those discussions. So we thank these guys for coming today. So Dan, it's up to you.
I'm going to stand up over there because
So feel free to slide sideways for better.
Over here, over there.
Over there is fine. Those of us that can will.
Thank you. You go first.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. Can you hear me?
Just speak towards the room, but we might still get it.
Oh, there's other mics. Okay.
Thank you for having us. As Dave mentioned, my name is Dan Baruch, Planning and Zoning for the Town and Village of Lake George. Sean Doty is here with me. He's one of our town designated engineers for both the town and the village. I've been working very closely my entire career in Lake George, and Sean's been integral helping us with the development of the application and project plans for the expenditure of the $10 million Downtown Revitalization Initiative funds that we were recently awarded. I'm just going to give a super quick primer, and the majority of what's in this presentation is what we believe are some of the most transformative projects and those that are related to the nexus of the Lake George Park Commission and the things that you guys do. So there's a few projects that we're hoping to get funded that are not in here, but they're not necessarily connected to, you know, the lake or the environment, stormwater, septic, all those things. So we started this effort over 18 months ago. We developed a committee. Several people in this room participated. Kathy was on the application committee, so was Sean. We developed what we felt was the strongest comprehensive application for funding from New York State. The Downtown Revitalization Initiative is an annual funding source that gets put out throughout the state, one $10 million award per region each year. So every year there's one chance for a community such as ours to win, and we were lucky enough to be selected in this past funding round, partly because the town and the village teamed up to apply, and they team up on a lot of things, and I'm sure all of you are aware of that. We are partners on mostly everything that we do, just like we are both partners with the Park Commission on several important projects. And we're hoping to maybe solicit a partnership with you guys on any of these projects, or just with support through some of the projects that we're looking to get done that have nexus, again, to what you guys deal with. The very first project that I want to talk about, and I'm going to do a very quick overview, and then I'm going to let Sean jump in because he's been helping design this. Shepherd Park has long been one of the most integral and popular locations in the village and in Lake George. We have a fully functioning beach down at the bottom of Shepherd Park. We have many other things that go on in the park, from concerts on Fridays to markets and fairs. Unfortunately, we just lost our bandstand at the amphitheater, but we're going to be looking into rebuilding that soon. One of the things that we're trying to focus on with some of this money in Shepherd Park is an underutilized portion of beach. It's actually an unused portion of beach. If you've been down in Shepherd Park lately in the village, all the way to the south of the Shepherd Park beach, just adjacent to our McDonald Pier, is an area of beach that cannot be swam in. It's actually roped off. Department of Health has told us that basically the lake bed drop is too steep for a swimming area. So we've had this closed off for a couple of years now, and it's starting to get what I would call blighted. It's under cared for. We're getting garbage, litter, all those types of things. So we've been working over the past year and a half developing a plan to revitalize that section of beach. I think the two most important aspects of this project, which we're calling the Lake Walk, is getting people to the edge of the water right? We have a lot of lakefront shoreline in Lake George. A lot of it is privately owned. A lot of it is either state land or preserve and hard for some people to access. This facility, which is, I'm calling it a parklet, it's going to be fully accessible. It's going to be all-inclusive. It's going to be something that anyone can get to. And we're really proud of that aspect of this project. It's going to be raised, so the area where this parklet is going to be at the same elevation as the boardwalk is now. The beach is a few feet lower. So we're raising this up, we're installing this parklet that's going to be fully accessible. And I believe the second most, and possibly the most important aspect of this project is what we're doing under the park. Similarly to the biofiltration system that was put in down at Dog Beach by the state, we're looking at putting in some stormwater mitigation practice along the shoreline to try and address some of the runoff that comes down from Canada Street, primarily the area, the sub-watershed that we can call Shepherd Park. There's a decent amount of impervious in the park and uphill, obviously, and we have a couple of outfalls down by the lake that we're hoping to sort of plug into this park and help treat through biofiltration underneath. So I'm going to let Sean take over for a second and talk about more of the technical aspect, but I think Dave and I had a discussion early on, right after we started the LPC meetings for DRI, and I talked to him about some of the aspects of these projects like biofiltration and some of the other things you're going to see that are related to what the Park Commission does and has a nexus to your mission.
Perfect. So it was about this time last summer that I met with Mayor Perry, and he had just come back from a meeting with Jim Leeroom, who's in the back, most of you know who he is, where they started to conceptualize this project. And I'm laughing right now because I think Dan had mentioned, hey, I'm going to talk for just a minute about Shepherd's Park parklet, and then I'll let Sean talk about it. And it reminds me of something Mayor Perry told me recently, which is he was 4th or 5th in line to give a speech, and he kept getting pushed back. So everything he wanted to say everything he wanted to say in his speech, he couldn't say because everybody said it in front of him. So here I am to talk to you about this park. These are a couple of perspectives of what the parklet can look like. And so it's supposed to be very pedestrian friendly. I think Mayor Perry said that he envisioned it as a greenway, right? So it's a stormwater management, stormwater treatment facility, but with pedestrian accommodations. And to Dan's point, I think most of you have been down there probably recently, this would be a vast improvement. So the idea, if we go back to this overall plan view, is there's 6 or 7 acres of watershed that are tributary to this location because there's 2 main outlets, stormwater outlets that come down here along the beach club and then just north off the page here. And we can pick these up and reroute them underneath this park. And so those will be likely infiltration practices with surface water being treated with various implements of green infrastructure. So it's personally, I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be incredible for this location. I have some young kids that still use the youth commission, and so every day they're at that beach from 12 to 3. And I can just imagine the youth commission, in addition to using the beach, letting the kids have a good time over here too. So some of the costs associated with it, as you can see here, the lake walk itself is somewhere around $1.25 million. Of course, that's subject to what you want to put in, right? Landscaping budgets can vary and what you want to put in for treatments. And then the mayor's other desire, which has been picked up by the committee, is to return Shepherd's Park bathroom to having an observation deck. So previous to its current configuration, which has a gable roof on it, this used to be an observation deck. And so he'd like to return to that. And that's estimated somewhere around $750,000. So the two, with legal, technical administrative costs, also contingencies. The budget for this project is about $3 million. We have already secured preliminary design monies through the WQIP program and the Lake Champlain Basin program as well. So it's well on its way, and hopefully it can be further catalyzed by the DRI program. I guess we'll take questions at the end, right, after we go through the rest of the projects.
So, Dan, is the replacement for McDonald Pier, is that completely off the table now?
That is off the table right now. The original iteration of this project has also always had dual, two different aspects of it. The first is Lake Walk, and that remains as is. The second aspect the project used to have prior to this observation deck was actually going to be either an extension or a replacement and extension of McDonald Pier. We've heard from people for years, Lake George needs a fishing pier, we need a better lookout, we've heard a lot of different things over the years. The original concept to have an extended pier actually would have...
See here. Does this laser work? It won't show up on the screen.
It actually would have brought this existing pier out and basically it would have ran parallel with the wall of this park and connected back to the north end, sort of have a loop, right? A nice connection for people to walk. And since it was lateral, it would have been, there would have been a lot of fishing area for people. We were talking about programming within the piers. There was a lot of cool things that were sort of circling around the idea. Two main things that came up in the development of the project that sort of made us put a pause on the pier extension. The first, obviously, I'm sure you guys all know, costs, right? Costs can climb, they can get out of hand. For a municipality, even though both of our municipalities have good bond ratings, going to the bank for sort of an excess is not something that the boards are looking to do right now. And we're trying to split the $10 million to the best of our ability with one another and private projects, so we're not bonding, $5, $6, $7 million each. The second aspect was really public. We heard from a few people with concerns about the pier. We heard from people that they wanted us to rebuild the whole thing, take the existing one out and rebuild the whole thing. We had a few wild ideas on what to do with the pier. We're not turning it to Hampton Beach or Old Orchard Beach. This is a lake, and we're not going to be doing anything like a carnival pier. But we did get some pushback. We got some concern from people. We got a lot of questions, and I would say unfounded pushback, right, on the concept itself. We had a good idea in mind. We were going to do it the right way, but it just ended up being not politically supported, right, by everybody. And I think at the time the costs came in, this was past the lack of support, so that sort of put the nail in the coffin for now. We're still looking at doing something in the future there, whether it's improving the one that exists, changing the shape of it, but we're not sure the extension. We're not sure how much we're going to be getting into that the next couple of years at least.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd point out too, and this is only my personal opinion, not that of the committee or the village or the town, is developing it in phases could inform what does occur with the pier in the future, right? And so once this is in, it's obviously got beautiful views now. You're going to be even elevated at the edge of the water. We may want to potentially develop this pier differently based on the feeling and the perspective that you have once you're in the park.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see how the user experience goes, and if it's something that's still warranted and we can find some dollars for it in the future, it's definitely something that the village still wants to do. But DRI, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the process of DRI. I've been with the village and town for almost 10 years now. This is the fastest moving train that I've been on, and I go on some pretty fast trains. So we were not trying to battle to get this in. and with the cost. I mean, this park right now is already $3 million, the park with the observation deck and all the contingencies, soft costs, et cetera. So, and you'll see in a couple other slides, we're really hammering away at that 10 million pretty quickly.
Segue.
Yeah. So next project that we have here, which is a much smaller one in terms of cost, but it still has pretty relative benefit. Heritage Wayfinding Project. So we had come up with an idea. The village is lacking, in our opinion, comprehensive interpretive signage in regards to the history that Lake George holds. We have so much history in Lake George. We literally have a 1,000-page book that we finished 5 or 6 years ago with a federal grant on all the sites and historic relevance that Lake George holds, particularly associated with military campaigns that took place there. So the Battlefield Park is a pretty great site in terms of, you know, focusing on history and heritage and sharing that information. But we've sort of lacked, right? We've not done enough outside of that park to tell people our story. This project, we feel, will do just that. It is a comprehensive package. It's 18 signs scattered about the village and town. Downtown area, I'm going to reference DRI boundary. It's this red outline. This is what we submitted to the state as our boundary, as our downtown area. So all of our projects are actually within that red border. The signage will be scattered throughout that border and boundary. Most of the signs in the village, but a handful of them in the town. We've even got a sign over by your guys' building. And what we did was we worked with the Lake George Historical Association to identify issues or topics or themes that these signs will basically cover. So we've got everything on here from the old county courthouse to a sign down by the northern part of Shepherd Park to talk about ice harvesting. That used to be a thing back in the day on the lake, an important thing for our economy. We've got Montcalm Attack Landing. We've got signs in the Battlefield Park. We've got one for the Steel Pier and the old railroad station, one for Old Military Road, all the way up to even late 20th century things like the Warden Hotel fire. That was an old hotel building downtown Village. And there's a nice new building that was rebuilt in its place, but these are things that people forget or they don't know about. So we're putting these signs out. If you want to click to the next screen, Sean. They're very similar to the ones that exist in Saratoga Springs, if anyone's familiar with downtown Saratoga Springs or these signs. This was a comprehensive sign program they put up a couple of years ago. But I think the most critical of the signs are these, right? So there's a picture on the back. It's actually a narrative in most cases, a storyline, old graphics, images, maps of a piece of the historic puzzle, right? On the other side is the wayfinding, is a current map of the downtown area, points of interest, businesses, banks, churches, what have you, the stuff that exists today. It really helps people get around the city very well, and it brings people out and it gets them learning about the community that they're in. So if you want to go back one more. Sorry. The information on the right, costs, very low cost project. The signage itself is under 200. This is a project that'll start next year. Again, we're working with the historic entities that exist around the lake. The other component that this includes that I didn't talk about, which is not necessarily relevant, some new gateway signs for the town and the village. Another small project, but again, equally as important in terms of benefit, is a public arts project. Again, we feel that we've been lacking in sort of some of the culture and arts side of things. And we're working to try to enhance that and make that a little more robust, specifically in the downtown through this DRI. One of the projects we came up with, which is one of my personal favorites, I think it's going to be a pretty awesome thing to see around the village and town. We're calling it the Lake George Canoe and Art Trail. The primary aspect of this project is going to be a series of canoe sculpture installations, again, scattered throughout the boundary. This is just sort of to get you, familiarized with what it might be in terms of scale. I think the canoes will actually look more like this, sort of cut flat on the bottom so they can be more sculpture on something like a base. The coolest thing about this project, we're working with the Lake George Arts Project, which is our local arts nonprofit. We're putting out a call for artists, and there are going to be 18 or 19 of these canoe sculptures, and each one is going to be uniquely and individually painted by a separate artist. Each one is going to sit on a base that's going to have an informational tablet or something about the artist and a QR code that'll link them back to the Lake George Arts Project website, which they'll find on there this trail, right? This endeavor. People can walk around the village and find all the canoes and learn about the artist, etc. This is an actual rendering. We're working with Adirondack Studios. This is what we're hoping for in terms of scale. Obviously, we're not doing any designs because the artists are going to paint them themselves. But the other aspect of this project, along the trail, we're going to have situated 3 new murals. Just like the ones that you see going up in downtowns across the area. Specifically, this one was Glens Falls. This was funded by DRI. This is the old one in Warrensburg next to New Way Lunch. Most of you probably know it. Again, we're trying to get some arts and culture in the downtown area. We've got a couple perfect locations for these murals, and it'll be right along this trail. And I really think it's going to bring out maybe more of an artistic or cultural flair to the village, and hopefully attract some new people, right? New people that have not been here before. Total cost on that is only $250,000. Artist fees are upwards of $100,000. And I think I covered everything else. This is another quick project. Could start as early as next year. This is another extremely important one that I do think has relevance to the Park Commission's mission. This is called the South Canada Streetscape Enhancement Project. Many of you know we completed in 2017 what we call the Gateway Project, which was in the town. From Goody Golf, so the intersection of 9 and 9N, all the way to the boundary of the town, the border with the village, Westbrook. We installed basically a complete street. We put in sidewalks, we put in lights, we put in planted medians for traffic calming, landscaping, stormwater practices, the whole gamut. And we felt bad because we stopped right at the village, right? They had this puzzle piece that was missing, because they have a beautiful streetscape downtown. Throughout Canada Street, there's brick inlay, there's wide sidewalks, landscaping, all the features, but we had this gap that existed. Right from the intersection of Westbrook Road or Betty Little Boulevard, all the way up to the intersection with Beach. So this whole strip is the fort. We've got Sewell Street over here, and a lot of those businesses as you climb the hill, DJs and Lobster Pot, all of those. So this project is intended to bridge that gap. It's effectively an extension of the Gateway Project. We're continuing the Complete Streets mantra. We're redoing sidewalks, enhancing ADA access, putting in new street lights, planted medians for traffic calming and aesthetics, and most importantly, something you won't see, which will be underground, stormwater control. So these are just a few renderings of what the project might look like with some of the features. One of the most important, if we can pull it off, is the planted median. That was very successful in the town's Gateway Project. We brought the speed limit down from 55 to 40. We've reduced traffic incidents. We've really created a safer street. And now if you drive the road, you can see pedestrians, you can see bicyclists, people of all modalities. Another expensive project, as I said earlier, we're eating away at that 10 pretty quickly. This is a little over 2.5. Construction itself is just over 1.6. Another longer term project because of obviously the scope. We have to deal with DOT, construction timeline. So we're probably going to start this in 2026 if it gets awarded, and it'll be a couple years at it. But we do have a lot of other plans in place. We're going to try to go get a few other dollars, maybe from GIGP, the Green Infrastructure Grant Program. But another good one for the Park Commission to see. Urban Forestry Project, I thought this was just a cool project to show you guys in terms of getting sort of an urban forestry aspect, focusing on landscaping, focusing on aesthetics downtown, and most importantly, the amount of trees that we're going to plant in this project and the tree pits that are going with them are going to help improve pollution collection, right? Stormwater runoff collection, nutrient uptake, and hopefully, fingers crossed, decrease the amount of time we have to spend on watering these things. So this is another $250,000 project. There are 59 or 60 trees that we're trying to plant throughout the village, effectively taking out old ones, diseased, dead, etc., or planting new ones. We've got some along the back streets that we're planting new. Fixing up a lot of the gardens that exist along the lakefront, some of the stuff over by the pier Park Commission uses, the courthouse, down in Shepherd Park, further south along the boardwalk. So really it's a comprehensive look at aesthetics and landscaping being spearheaded by the Go Green Committee. This is one of my favorite projects. This is one of my babies. I've been working on this for 5 years. Many of you know, in 2019, we found the remains of 44 Continental soldiers and others in the village of Lake George. The town and the village have been working very diligently to reinter these American heroes. And I'm sure most of you have heard or know that we've been working with Senator Schumer and many other dignitaries to try to get this project implemented. And we did finally receive earlier this year approval from the APA and the DEC. They amended the UMP just like you guys had to do for your new building. They included this plaza, which includes 6 columbarium structures that are going to be above ground. They're about 3 feet high, 8 feet long. And this memorial plaza that we feel will recreate this portion of Battlefield Park. It's literally right across the street from your building. I'm going to show you the site plan in a second. You know, this is a place that people can walk to, they can learn, they can reflect, honor. So we're going to put some memorials in here. We're going to have a lot of signage throughout to let people know who these people were, where we found them, why this project took place, and why it was so important to the history that we hold so dear. Sean, if you want to click. So you probably all know the site just across the street, just across Fort George Road. There is an old 30-inch pine. It's a really big tree. It's kind of sitting out in the field by itself. We've incorporated that tree into our design and built off of it. And this is actually going to be the crosswalk that leads to the macadam path that was just resurfaced right in front of the building. So it's really going to connect and build upon a lot of the stuff that's in the Battlefield Park. We feel it's going to be a national draw for heritage tourism. So we're really excited about this. Oddly enough, with the importance of it, it's pretty low cost, $600,000. We are asking DRI, I think, for $400,000 because we just rolled out a fundraising campaign and we're feeling really positively about that. This project has a strict timeline. We are starting next spring, no questions asked, and we have to finish by spring 2026 because we are having an unveiling ceremony Memorial Day weekend 2026. It's going to coincide with the 250th. It's going to be one of the events of the 250th. And we expect, you're obviously all invited because it's right in your backyard, but we expect anywhere between 500 and 1,000 people to show up to this event, including the governor and Senator Schumer. So we're really excited about it. The Army will be there. It's going to be a huge thing, I think, for the Revolutionary War era and the knowledge that we have of it in Lake George. This is another really cool project, very close to you, right up Fort George Road. There is a vacant property just past Boats by George. It used to have a bunch of little cottages on it. If you guys take 9 and turn down Fort George, it's that first property on the left behind the chamber. Those cottages were demolished a couple of years ago because of vagrancy, and the property's been sitting there unused, and we are trying to purchase it from the Macchio family. That's who owns it. If anyone's ever seen Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio, that's his family. So they own this property and many others in Lake George. We're working with them on a purchase deal or a lease agreement, and we're trying to develop a new park. The park will be a multifaceted one. It will house a new 100-foot long pavilion, which will hopefully host the revitalized farmers market. The farmers market had been having issues in years past. It's formally been taken out of the village, and what we're doing is looking to recreate the farmers market that either exists in Saratoga Springs or something similar, right? It's a nonprofit. They really focus on healthy food and craft goods, because ours started turning into like a retail, like a farmer's, a bazaar or something like that. So we're trying to recreate that. We're going to have the region's first all-inclusive playground. These playgrounds are designed by Miracle Playgrounds. They are meant for all persons, including persons with disabilities. We're really excited about that. It's going to have parking on both sides, a bathhouse, and in the middle, this large lawn area will hopefully be programmed in the winter for an outdoor ice skating rink. We did lose the one that was in Charleswood Park. They're not coming back next year, so we're hoping to have this winter attraction included in this project. That's just the rendering of it from an aerial perspective. This is Fort George Road right here. That's another relatively expensive project, $2 million. I think we're asking DRI for $1 million and change. Again, we're probably going to do, on this one, probably going to do ground level, so rain gardens or infiltration basins, something similar to what we had down at Dog Beach there, because we don't have a lot of real estate underneath the ground here. So I put one slide at the end here. How can Lake George Park Commission sort of partner or be involved, be supportive of these projects? And I tried to prioritize them in a way that I thought meshed well with the mission of the Park Commission. These two projects at the top both have biofiltration and green infrastructure practices or focuses in them. That, I feel, is on its face an excellent topic or issue for the Park Commission to support or be involved in. Secondarily, I do believe there is a history or heritage aspect of the Park Commission's mission. And while this project may not need support fiscally or otherwise, this is one that I think might be an important project for the Park Commission to support. It's going to be in the park with you. It's right across the street. It's going to connect not only geographically but programmatically with the VIC that's on the bottom floor of your building. Priority 3, recreation and landscape or streetscape. We're going back to the park, the urban forestry project, beautifying the village and the town, and installing these things that help us take up water and nutrients. A lot of information. Sorry for talking a little long. I always do that. Whoever knows me here knows I do that. So I put my information up here. I put Sean's information. The top link is actually the DRI website. If you want to know more about DRI, what we're up to, the LPC committee meetings, it's all on there. And very soon, all the projects that are submitted will be on there as well.
Amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Really good.
Well done.
Any questions?
Really good. Thank you. What type of tree species are you guys looking to?
We have a master gardener in the village, and she knows much more than I do about species, and we have a very long list. They're all native, but we have a very long list. What we're trying to do with the forestry project is actually mature species.
Nice.
Right? We've lost a lot of the shade canopy. We've lost a lot of that aesthetic appeal that downtowns have with mature species. We're trying to plug that back in.
Nice.
So.
Sean, question for you.
Sure.
DOT historically has kind of shied away from infiltration of stormwater within road subbase. Have you moved beyond that? Can you do better than they used to?
You probably remember the Gateway project was a little bit of a challenge. We had to move, and when, in your previous capacity, I think you put infiltration devices in front of the Holiday Inn, too, for that very reason. So I didn't answer your question, but the answer generally is it's still a balance. It's still a balance. Under the Gateway project, we did receive green infrastructure grant program funding from EFC, and we're able to marry it, and we're able to put some in. But that'll be the pitch for this one too.
Yep.
Yeah, it's, so years ago, we had Don Lake, arguably the state's best stormwater engineer, help
Yeah.
us with the Westbrook project, our whole Route 9 corridor, and Don Lake's assessment was, given the soils or the depth of soils, the substrate, it was an ideal opportunity for DOT to step out of its little box and do better and to prove, and I think we even backstopped them with some money, saying if these things do lead to some heave in the road, then we could offer to repair that at the end of the day. And they still, this goes back to Dan Hitt's day. They still said, no, absolutely not, we're not considering that. But that was, I'm going back, Jesus, Jim, 15 years ago when we were doing this together, and we would have thought maybe they evolved from that point. You're saying not so
They
much.
had to some degree, yeah, but it's still
It's tremendous opportunity. I mean, it's 40 feet of clean sand. It's ideal.
Yep.
And I don't want to evangelize, but if there's an opportunity to get DOT engaged in that topic again, I would love to be part of it.
Okay, yeah, well, that'll be helpful.
There's some new staff down there in the planning department. There's a lot of turnover, so.
Okay.
You mentioned a wall, you mentioned a wall on the Shepherd's Park project?
Yes, there will have to be a little, we're trying to make sure that it's a natural shoreline wall, but there will have to be some sort of a wall to elevate that parklet to have it at the same grade as the lake walk, the boardwalk.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you're, one, softening it, and two, being in touch with DEC.
Yep.
Both check marks,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yep, and then the wall will be just before the shore. So,
Dan, will the speed limit change in the village then, or in that section?
Probably not, it's already 30 in there. They typically don't go lower than that, but one of the goals of the Gateway project was to drop it down from 55, State highways are typically 55, and that stretch of road was a problem before we put in the traffic calming. The goal is to just kind of continue the essence of it. The hurdle we're going to have with the potential medians in the village is the right-of-way width. If you're coming down that road into the village, you can kind of see how it narrows up a little. If there's not enough in terms of width, we might have a small median, or we'll come up with a creative way to get it beautified otherwise. But I'm sure it'll stay at 30.
very good.
Hey, Mason, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Wow. This is a new day for the birth of the Lake George area. I mean, it's really. Personal. Chris, are you going to be here for public comments? I know I'm not going to say you sneak out once in a while early, you leave early.
If I don't have a conflict.
Pardon me?
If I
Well, I have a question for you, which I would ask, but if you're going to be here at comment time, I'll do it legally. Thank you.